Take it away, Jeremy. Excited to have you here.
Thank you, Chris. Good to see you again. Um, I don't remember off the top of my head what year it was that I was involved with AAPT. Do you remember what year that was, Chris?
That was, I think, 2016, 2017. You were part of the new faculty
Yep, yep,
program.
yeah. So that really got me fired up, frankly, for um, teaching physics again. And since then, I guess I should back up. My name is Jeremy Durelle. I moved here from I moved to the US from Canada in 2014, and I moved here for the job. I discovered in graduate school that I really liked teaching, and so that was kind of what I pursued. And since then, oh, Stefan, yes, I will send that right now. So I just posted a link to the chat. If you want to go in and register, it'll give you full access for the day. Just we'll have a little section where we'll use it during the workshop, and then I figured you could just use the rest of the time to sort of play with your own assignments and see how it fares. Um, in the 11 years that I've been teaching physics and chemistry at the community college that I'm in, but the the restrictions, I guess, and the scrutiny around grading and reporting and consistency um, has been has only increased. At least I've sort of felt it. A lot more oversight, especially with accrediting bodies involved. And so, with all that sort of extra stuff, I found that I was spending a lot more time kind of going through grading and not as much time as doing what I liked and what I think we all like. It was really just interacting with the students and um, kind of help guiding them along their path. And so over the summer, that really came to a head for me because I was taking on multiple sections at various colleges, and I had something around 200 plus students. And like there are textbook platforms that will auto grade assignments for you, but the thing I find unsatisfactory about them uh, was that the input they just input a number and either it's right or it's wrong, and if it's wrong they'll get maybe stock feedback from it that may or may not have anything to do with how they arrived at that number in the first place. And so I wanted something that could grade grade their actual submissions where they actually have to show their work and interpret it in real time. And AI has been really booming in the past couple of years, especially the last year. And so I went on a search over the summer. Not only was I handling 200 students, but we had just delivered our firstborn. We just accepted our firstborn, and that was a new experience for me. And I didn't have time really to monkey around with 200 plus exams and assignments, because the things I prefer to give them are custom assignments where I want to see their work. I want them to be submitted to me. That way, it gives me an opportunity to give them meaningful feedback that's related to the work that they submitted. And so all that is sort of the preface of where this AI tool came from. So I went on a search actually for existing AI grading tools, and there's no shortage of them, but they're mostly for grading essays. Not mostly, they're almost all for grading essays, generating essays, and then grading those essays. Very little was available in the way of STEM in general, especially physics, actually, but especially chemistry. Those two are very tough to nail down because there's a lot of symbols in them. The formatting is kind of particular. We don't want to confuse like a chemical symbol for an actual, name. And just overall, just fonts are quite different. And so the closest I could find was something like, you could submit handwritten stuff, and it would go through those handwritten submissions and pick out similarities. So it grouped them basically. So things that look like the same answer were grouped together, and you could sort of like grade them all simultaneously, which is okay. But like I actually emailed the founder directly because I wanted to know if it could do what I really wanted it to do, which was the dynamic AI grading system. I wanted to be able to put in their submissions, and I wanted to deliver not just a grade. Like I didn't want just the grade. I wanted an actual like learner report. I wanted it to reflect the sort of feedback that I would like to be able to give them, but couldn't under the circumstances. Like when you've got a stack of 200 plus papers, you maybe are ambitious for the first dozen or so, but after that, it's a lot of checks and circles and maybe an exclamation mark here and there and little notes, but nothing really substantive, which is what I wanted to give them. And so I asked them point blank, like, can it do this? Is there something available where I can submit my physics assignments and it returns an individualized report for each of the students, telling them what they did right, what they did wrong, how they could improve, and what their grade was overall. And they said no. The closest I could get was that again that grouping of similar symbols, similar pictures, but that just wasn't cutting it for me. So the long and short of it is, I had to kind of create the program myself. It's just a little web app. It started out again at the beginning of the summer, very crude. Again, it was just for me. I wasn't looking to market it or anything. I just wanted relief of my time. And I saw like once we got that prototype working, once I got that prototype working and I used it on my students, I felt for me it was a game changer. Like whether it will be for you, it was a game changer for me because one, all of a sudden I had a lot more time to actually interact with the students, to actually like when they sent me an email, it was not like a very concise response. It was a more substantive response, and because I had time to do that. I had time to check in on them. People who are struggling, I had the time to identify them. And I was balancing this with the newborn as well. And the students loved it too, because again, what they were getting was way more than what they would normally otherwise get, not just from me, but likely from any other, even the most ambitious among us. I think will get burnt out after 100 plus of the same assignment. And so what they were getting was uh, very substantive feedback, something they could actually use and improve off of, and they got it right away. I mean, this could cycle through. I never put 200 at a time, but I've consistently put 30 to 50 at a time. And depending on what kind of submissions they are, like how messy they are, how handwritten they are, um, it can take anywhere, it usually takes around 10 minutes. I'll say usually around the 10-minute mark for that level, assuming there's some among them that are handwritten. I have to put that little asterisk there because handwritten is the um, key phrase there. There is not on the market so far something that's tied to these grading platforms, these AI grading platforms that will read reliably handwritten stuff. If they were to submit all things that they typed up in Word, that's one thing. That's easy enough. It still didn't exist, but it was easy enough to do. But when they submit something handwritten, which was kind of what they do for the most part, I mean, they'll either write it on paper and then take a picture, or they'll write it on their iPad and they'll submit that. either way, it's going to count as handwritten. And the software needed to be able to read and interpret that and use that in its grading workflow. And so this is something that this is one of the, I guess, later in the summer, it was able to do that sort of dynamically because that takes a lot more time. If you have to call this specific API to read the handwritten stuff, you will at a minimum double the grading time. And I say double, like 20 minutes as opposed to 10 minutes for 100 or for 50 assignments. That's not really too bad, I don't think. But all the same, I didn't want it to do that every single time. And so now it's kind of optimized so that it'll run through a series of checks first to see if it's worth passing to this other program that can read the handwritten stuff. If not, it'll just grade it as is. So it sees how many characters it can extract first, and then based off of that and other tests that it goes through. Do we need to call in the handwriting reader or not? And so it makes things a little bit easier. But all the same, that's sort of my backstory. And for the workshop, what I kind of wanted to do with you guys, with you folks, is I would like to do two things. I'm going to give you something to grade. Sorry, so it's a workshop, so I have to put you to work. So I'm going to give you something to grade, and we're going to go into breakout rooms, and I just want you to be conscious about like how long this is taking. They're just kind of easy stock questions. I'll give you a solution key and I think half a dozen submissions. And I just want you to go through them in your group and sort of grade them and see what, if you can agree what these students would get based on the grading rubric and how much time it takes. Yes, sir. Yes, Carl.
Yeah, so I had a question that I've played around some with AI, and the issue that was worried most about, you didn't talk about, so I wanted to ask it, which is
Sure.
that I can see giving, feedback to students about what they might want to do and so on, and that being sort of less problematic. The actual assigning of a grade, I was worried about because that's something much, in some sense, much more critical from a student's perspective, and it's very hard for me to believe that AI is going to be able to always do that right. And see, it seems like there's a much higher barrier there of accuracy, and so can you talk about that?
Yeah, of course. I'll bring this up again during the demo, but over the summer we beta tested it for just that reason. Like we wanted to make sure that the grades that the software, the web app was assigning was aligned with what we would have given them anyway. So we did that preliminary check just to make sure. But you're right to say that it won't always do that. And so a key feature of ScoreWise, this was kind of intentional, like the report does not go directly to the student. It has to pass through you first. So you will submit those assignments. And maybe for the most part, there'll be, you'll, when you review the grades, it'll be in line with what you was sort of think. If not, that's fine. But I was satisfied for what it's worth. For me, I was satisfied with the grades it was spitting out. But every like once in a while, it would, the term is called hallucinate. So if you don't, for example, if you don't supply the solution set or the solution key, it's more likely to hallucinate what the answers should be. And so in that case, you'll get a much greater variance in the grades that spit out. Or sometimes it just won't be able to read it, frankly. You know how I said like it goes through a series of tests before it passes to a handwritten software. Well, what will it do if the student submits the printed out assignment and they're just writing on that assignment? I don't know. Whether it goes to the handwritten thing and we'll be able to read it sort of more accurately depends on kind of the ratio of handwritten stuff to printed stuff, as well as how many characters it can actually extract without reading the handwritten stuff. So those two factors are at play. So I don't want to minimize your concern at all. I mean, that's why we beta tested it a lot. But the other remedy is if you're not satisfied with the grade that the score wise comes up with, it comes up with those grades based off of a default rubric. So and the default rubric is what I'm going to supply, what I'm going to show you. But you can use your own. If you're saying like, wow, these grades are maybe too high. It's not really or not too high, but like it's not focusing on the elements that I care about more. So you can go ahead and just put your custom rubric in, and it will grade based off of that rubric instead. And the report will reflect your rubric elements instead of the default ones. So those are the two remedies, but all the same, it's not perfect. It'll never be flawless, but I will say with AI, I think it will only improve with time. If that answers your question.
Yeah, I'm still, I'm more worried about you putting in a rubric, but then, some of the time the AI just misinterprets what the student wrote and, gives some quite erroneous grade and that causing problems.
Yeah, no, valid. And I'm not gonna sugar that does happen rarely. I'd say, well, recently it hasn't happened. So like most of the false negatives that you're talking about, or in the early stages, I haven't seen any of them since the beginning of the semester. But that's not to say that it won't do it.
Now you say you see fewer. Is that because you've found fine-tuning your rubrics or prompts, or what's happened to make it better?
Yeah, being much more explicit with the prompt. So not just the rubric, but the rubric is one element of the prompt that gets sent to the AI. The prompt itself needs to be really ironclad, almost like a legal document. If you've got any vagueness in there, the AI will fill in the gaps for you. And so that's where most of the correction has happened, is just in that zone. Because yeah. So that's where it's at now. And we can always tinker with that more if you want to be strict. But I try to make it generic enough so that most of the strictness is coming from the rubric itself and not so much the prompt. I don't want to hard code really strict guidelines into the prompt itself if the user doesn't want it to be that strict, right? They should be in control of that. But that's how it's improved.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, good question. And please feel free to ask any questions you have. I'll try and address all of them during the demo, and then when I sort of set you loose to play with the software yourself, you can sort of test it. And I welcome that. I welcome you to test it and try your best to break it. I would love to see this thing be the best it can be. I'm happy with it now, but I haven't tested it with whatever you want to throw at it. So it'll be fun to see. So with that, what I'd like to do, I'm going to drop some files in the chat, and these are just the, the baseline assignment, the solution set, and the various submissions. And I'm going to bring you into breakout rooms to grade them the old-fashioned way. Just grade them the old-fashioned way. See what they would get according to the rubric that's provided, and see if we can come to a consensus what the grade should be. And then we'll run through a demo and see what ScoreWise has to say about what the grade should be. Make sense?
Would you like me
Okay.
to start the breakout rooms, or are you going to do it, Jeremy?
Oh, if you wouldn't mind setting them up,
Not at all.
just maybe groups of 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And while you're setting them up, I will drop those files. All right. Well, welcome back, everyone. So I just wanted to go through that sort of preliminary exercise just to sort of look at an example of what how long this sort of assignment. I know it was a basic assignment, and I wanted to make sure it was like really generic, um, and and totally fake. So I sort of, I was telling one group I was sort of considering providing real world uh, examples kind of like out the gate, but then I was like, maybe I'll just say that for later, just to show you how it handles the real world stuff afterwards. But all the same, hopefully you've got sort of a sense of how each of these 6 students would perform on this particular assignment, given that rubric. Any thoughts or anything anyone wants to share? Any concerns or anything we want to share before we launch into the AI? I can tell some of you are already in there, and that's great. But we're gonna do it from scratch anyway, if that's okay with you. But before we do that, any questions or concerns or comments?
We were sort of wondering at what point. Okay, so I thought this was an actual assignment, so you fooled me.
Great.
Thinking if these are intro students, they're all doing suspiciously well on the calculations. I didn't realize that you got me. Okay.
Pass the Turing test. Yes. Yeah. So like it's the assignment. Although some groups pointed out like there are some, I wouldn't say critical errors. Well, maybe. I mean, I think it mislabeled the coefficients of friction, because one, like the static is supposed to be higher than the kinetic, and I think that had it mismatched. But in any case, it's uses the right number, I guess, in the calculation, but it's mislabeled. But for now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to run through those assignments using ScoreWise. Yes, Jake, please.
I was actually unsure of like the solution key had point values for each part of the problem, but the rubric like had different like not weight, I guess weightings. I wasn't sure like which we should have been using or like what you intend.
Well, yeah, good question. The ScoreWise, the AI software is going to use the rubric. It's not going to go by the point value of the questions sort of outlined. It's although it does, so it's a little complicated. It does read those point values, and it uses that to sort of weigh its grade, its overall grade that it spits out for them. Like it doesn't give like an A or B or C for each individual questions, but it uses those point values to sort of weigh how heavy they're going to get A or B or C. That sort of
Okay.
thing.
Um,
Yes.
and how does, I guess, the AI determine what grade to give within those bounds? Like, I think excellent was 90 to 100, or like unsatisfactory was sub 60.
So those are custom. You can, that's sort of something you would include in the rubric. So by default, that's just the grading scale, and currently it's currently hard coded by the subject. So for each subject that you choose, there'll be a kind of a different breakdown. And I've introduced something recently as well where you can sort of choose what kind of grading scale you would like. So there's one that's sort of default that's like A, B, C, or D, or A, B, C, D, F. And then there's another that's more nuanced that's called like the university grading scale. And that involves things like A plus, A minus, B plus, B minus, those sorts of things. So it's more graduated. But as far as like the number goes, again, the the primary thing that it looks at is that rubric. So it looks at your rubric elements and it sees how they perform based on the rubric. And then it goes through those sort of the numerical assessment and kind of weighs it based off of what each question was worth originally, and just kind of gives a weighted average for that. So that's the inner workings of it.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Tiffany.
Hi. Okay, so now that I know that these are not real student answers, it makes a little bit more sense. But one thing, when we are going through it, we're noticing like a lack of drawings and diagrams. Is that something that the AI grading can't really analyze well at this moment, or
No, it can't generate it very well, but it can read it just fine. So the submissions that you got, for the most part, besides my little handwriting stuff, they were AI generated. And so AI has a lot of trouble generating things like free body diagrams, or just diagrams in general. So if I'm guessing everyone in this room has gotten at least one student submission that was AI generated, and you can tell because the arrows don't make any sense when there's any diagrams or like a chart, and it just didn't make any sense. So it's really bad at writing those, but it's just fine at reading them. And there's a certain threshold that it passes, but honestly, both are okay. The handwriting reading tool that is definitely better. It takes longer, but it'll read diagrams, graphs, whatever, pretty well, or very well. And the default one, the one that doesn't get called, if it's mostly text, that still reads them as well. It just probably not as well.
what if if I were to do this, I would want to put like part A is to draw a picture, before like we get into it, would it be able to analyze that? I mean, because everybody would have a slightly, well, it should be similar, but if they use the same variables, might be a little bit different. But
Yeah, the picture itself, and you give points for the picture. Yes, but at that point, I don't know if I'd be using a custom like the default rubric at that point, because there's nothing in there that knows what the correct picture is. So your custom rubric would sort of spell that out, like, okay, here's what the picture ought to look like. So you need to say that. Otherwise, it will, I think, I don't know, because I've gotten pictures, especially in chemistry, like and it does a decent job, frankly. But I always had to tell it what it's supposed to look like beforehand. Otherwise, it hallucinates. And the term is
right.
literally called hallucination.
So if you
So
supply a picture just like you supply like the correct free body diagram, then it should be able to grade it
yeah,
based off of that. Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Have you
Um,
used it for grading chemistry?
Oh, I use it for grain chemistry as well. Yeah, so the it's a different rubric for every subject. But I have used it for chemistry and it works great, frankly. That was the more challenging one, if I'm being honest. Maybe not content wise, but symbols and
So,
other
yeah,
specific chemistry jargon wise.
yeah. So like let's
But
say organic chemistry that has lots of like shapes um
lots
like
of
let's
drawing
yeah, lots
structures.
of
Yeah.
drawings and errors for mechanisms. How will you input the describe
Oh,
how will you describe, let's say, the pictures and the errors and the hexagons and the pentagons, those shapes for it to be able to really or if you just write, let's say if I handwrite the key and scan it in, will it be able to like use that information to then grade students?
yeah, certainly. Although I would hesitate, especially with organic chemistry. Um, there is no good software, period, that can really read organic chemistry arrow pushing and retrosynthetic mechanisms.
Mm-hmm.
It's not great at that. Nothing's really great at that. AI is no different so far. So my experience is I can do Gen Chem pretty reliably. I haven't really pushed organic chemistry. That's where you're seeing like a lot of like very specific, because the arrows need to land on a very specific place,
Mm-hmm.
and it can't be off, so it's not there yet. So I haven't introduced organic chemistry because I don't have a good enough reader for that yet. But Gen
Okay.
Chem, like the Vesper shapes,
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. If you draw it, it will recognize it. If you write it in your solution set, it will recognize it as
Okay.
that. Um, Even better, just how AI works, even
Mm-hmm.
better would be to describe it. So if you were to describe it instead, it would have a much easier time because even if it does recognize it on your solution set that you submitted, who
Mm-hmm.
knows if it's going to call that specific program when the student's submission is in front of it. Like, it'll know which question to sort of reference, but
Mm-hmm.
if it didn't pass to the handwritten software, it might not know the difference between a hexagon and a pentagon. So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, so I would caution just on that. Um, but to be honest, I haven't run into that yet. I haven't had to do that sort of backfilling yet. It's graded my Gen Chem pretty reliably.
Okay.
Yeah, Libby.
I mean, I'm just curious, how does it work okay if you upload a handwritten solution for your thing with pictures and everything? I mean, I
Yeah.
know clearly when it's grading those, it has to do more work, but is it okay to like submit your solutions as?
Oh yeah, that's all I submit. All my solutions are handwritten. I save them as a PDF and I upload that. And yeah, it reads it just fine. So I mean, once you like for my solution set, it's just like any other submission. It goes through the same test that it would for any other submission. So it sees my solution set and they're all handwritten, and it decides very quickly that this needs to go to a handwritten software. And so that's usually the bottleneck for my submissions because it has to go through my solution set first, and it takes more time to read if it's going through that software. And then from there, it goes through the students. And whichever student is also handwritten also gets passed.
And little follow-up question. So what if students do a bunch of problems, but I only want to grade one? So they have a PDF that has like 10 problems and I just want the grader to grade problem 5.
Oh, no, it can't do that. Not yet. I mean, I could, there's nothing there. Yeah, there's nothing in there for a custom prompt. It'd be easy enough, actually, now that I think about it. It's not a feature that's in here now, but what you'd have to do on that upload form is maybe I'll put like something on the bottom or just before the start, the grading button to add a custom prompt, something that appends to the current prompt that says, ignore everything else, just grade question 5, for example. So if you wanted to drill down specifically, that's a good idea. I hadn't actually thought of that at all. So yeah, maybe that's a feature coming soon. Thank you. Other questions? Tiffany, yes.
So this is not a question, but I was trying to log into the ScoreWise AI and it said it's an invalid invitation code.
Well, yeah, we'll show you. Maybe
Oh.
Chris, this is a good opportunity to show us how to sign up.
Okay, so I'm sharing my screen. So sign up. Is this what we should do, Jeremy?
Yes, ma'am. So once you hit the sign up button, if you're a new user, you'll have to hit the sign up button, and then put in your details, your email address, and just create an account essentially.
Okay.
And you don't need to put anything in the invitation code if that's something a little different. But if you create the account, just as is.
Okay, so just click create account, leave the invitation code empty. All right.
So it says right now, so it just created the account. It didn't actually activate the workshop yet. That's normal. To get to the actual activated worksheet or workshop access, which is more broader access, you just have to go back to that optics page. So you just click on the link in the chat again, or go back to, yeah, exactly. And now when you scroll down, the button's gonna look a little different, or it's gonna read a little different. It just says activate workshop access. And clicking that should come up with a success message. There we go. This is in. And if you go back to the dashboard, you'll see that it looks a little different now because you've got better access now. So yeah, now it's your sort of full professional features are all available. Everything except for the API key generator is good to go.
All right, I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thank you. And maybe I'll start sharing mine. I'll just go through. I'll just go through these assignments kind of in real time to show you how I would grade these or how I would input them. I should have asked at first, but how much time roughly did that take everyone to do? Maybe you can, if you feel comfortable commenting or sharing that.
I think the big confusion was just there was 2 different rubrics, and that was sort of the difficulty that we ran into was what what is this whole like 80 to 90% and this thing over here, and then we have this other rubric, and I get how they overlay now, but when we were just coming off of grading all week, we were like, oh my goodness, we got to grade again. It was more of that kind of, I think it was more of us trying to get over that hump of
Sure.
yeah. Everything. So
yeah, it might be, at this point, pretty good. Yeah, good feedback, because I should have been more explicit in the direction. So that's my bad, not yours. But this might prevent a good opportunity. Like, I know the workshop's going to close down in half an hour, but that doesn't stop your access. Like, your access is for the rest of the day. And so if you feel up to it, if you want to test, your whatever you were grading this week and see if it matches at all with what ScoreWise will generate. If you do put in any real student submissions or real data, anything you input will be trash, will be deleted the moment it's done grading. So for FERPA purposes, nothing is kept. Nothing you input is kept. And as soon as even your reports, once you hit the download button and you get those reports, the reports are wiped from the server. So there's nothing on my end that gets retained. Yeah, go ahead, Libby.
Sorry, one last thing just popped in my head as I was like envisioning using this for homework. We often have them write a little thing at the end that's like assess your answer. Like, does this make any sense? So there's just be like some little paragraph that they write. How does it handle students doing conceptual explaining, paragraph writing versus just kind of going through math and diagrams?
Well, yeah, I would answer that artificial intelligence, like anything, is just a tool, and it's actually quite stupid if you don't tell it exactly what to do. So what I mean by that, Libby, is it's going to treat those questions like that, like any other question. It doesn't know really the difference between a math-based question and a question like that. So it's not going to notice the difference. It's going to treat it based on however much points you allocate to that question. That's the end effect. Yeah. Now, while we do this, I'm going to input some of these. So the assessment or the assignment itself is the physics mechanics assessment. I just drag and drop it there. And then I'll put in the student submissions. We got Alex, Emma, Marcus, Priya, Sophia, Tyler. And those all just get dumped into there. And then optional, but recommended, put in your solution key. Otherwise, you risk the AI hallucinating the answer. It still does I shouldn't say it does a decent job. When I put questions to it, like real questions, like my custom made questions, it doesn't do very well on those. It's not even consistent when I run it without the solution key. So especially if you've got like a tough question on there or a more involved question, I think adding the solution key is really important. So I'm going to put that in. That way it knows what to reference and doesn't just make it up itself. Most times it'll be right, but sometimes it won't be. So this time it will be right all the time. Should be. And I don't need to put in a custom rubric for this one because the rubric I supplied you is the default one. So it's just going to use that anyway. And Libby, your suggested field is probably going to go right here, right where that Start AI grading button is, right above there. It'll be like, anything else you'd like to add? And then you could just put in whatever you want. So we'll put the AI grading. There's one handwritten thing in there, so it'll probably have to pass to the handwritten software for it. So this might take, a couple minutes instead of, or probably a few minutes instead of a minute and a half. Like sometimes, if it's all text written, which some of the submissions I get are just that. I know for the most part they're all handwritten, but sometimes they just type it all up in Word and then they submit that. And when I get a batch of those, it's super quick. I mean, I say super quick. It'll do 30 in less than 10 minutes, 30 to 50 of those in less than 10 minutes. It's pretty slick. And so once it's done, you see I'll get that download button. I've run through this a bunch already, just testing it and making sure. But once you hit that download button, all the files will be wiped. And so there's not even a download button available to me for my past submissions because all that was wiped from the server. Again, that was a conscious choice for me because I would rather have to, if I needed the reports again for some reason, I'd rather have to redo it with the software rather than having it stored on a server. So let me see what they get. 30. Let's extract those. Let's see, Alex Kim. Oh, Chrome. So Alex did quite well, very well. And I know they said they got 100. It breaks it down by each of your rubric elements, and then gives them some positive feedback. Obviously, what they did was a lot very well, and just it fishes for some opportunities to grow. And then a detailed analysis per question, saying why they got the grade that they got. An earlier version of this, I don't know if this feature is going to be included again, but an earlier version of this had a different report being generated if they scored 100%. So maybe I'll just ask the audience to see if this would be of interest. But once upon a time, when they got an A or like 100% on an assignment, what would show up at the bottom was not an areas for growth. So instead of areas for growth, it would be it would generate a more challenging problem, and just for practice. So that's what it used to be. Just through all the tinkering that kind of got swept under the rug, but that's what it used to be. If you think that would be of interest and that would be a cool feature, I'm on the fence about it, but I'm good either way.
Can we look at Sophia's?
Sophia's.
Mhm.
So Sophia did quite well. Was there anything specific about Sophia that we wanted to check? Is there something like an error there that we wanted to?
Oh, she didn't have like the force diagram. I wanted to see if it said anything about that.
Let's see. So it looks for the forces that were identified, and so she text-based or Sophia text-based or text explained, but it didn't. So it counted that as their diagram. So it didn't ding them for the diagram. You're right. Just for sake of completeness, maybe we'll look at another one.
Can we see Tyler's?
Sure. So Tyler, they're saying they got a 76, or like just a kind of a barely pass, because they had Tyler probably had the most problems in their submission. I think they even said at one point, I don't know.
In Tyler's, we noticed that there in italics it had comments like error, use sign instead of cos, and cos. Is that like his submission, or was that including feedback from?
I think no, that was including feedback. So these submissions, I was going back and forth through the week whether or not I was just going to use real student data, like just masked, or just generated stuff. I opted to go with the AI generated stuff, just because I thought it would, well, first the demo would go better. AI grading AI generated stuff shouldn't be a problem. But yeah, so that's why. So those elements are there kind of as an artifact of the AI generation. But there we go. So anyway, this is kind of the overall report that they would get. And I do appreciate all of your comments and all of your questions. I really do. Anything else that you'd like to talk about before we move on? I know there's not a whole lot of time left, but
Wait, so this is what Tyler would see? Like he wouldn't get a breakdown on the steps, the part where he got wrong, like which step he did incorrectly?
well, yeah, so the detailed breakdown comes kind of at the end. So the detailed analysis, it goes like question 1, here's what you did. Question 2, here's what you did. And question 3, here's what you did. So yeah, it does kind of justify why it gave the grade that it gave by
Okay.
question.
So it
Yeah.
does it more as a summary paragraph at the end, but not on like the actual assignment. It won't like.
No.
Okay,
No,
got it.
it doesn't overwrite the assignment at all.
And then also, does it recognize doesn't analyze whether a submission is AI generated or if it's the same as another student's?
No, so that feature is not available yet. Just it's on my to-do list. But you're right. That's a feature I want to add. That's not currently in there, and it's easy enough to add, but my hesitation for implementing it kind of right away, or now my delay in implementing it is more this. Like when I tinker with this, a lot of times whatever small little adjustment I make usually just doesn't affect anything else. But that one in like 10 times when I tinker with it, and all of a sudden nothing works. And this is one of those, like, looking through the submissions themselves. That's something that would go into like the core grading Python code. And that's my reason for hesitating. It's a poor excuse. But that's the real reason. I'm afraid of breaking it too soon. So that is a feature that's coming. But I don't know when. Hopefully soon, because it's not hard to implement because it exists already. So it's easy enough to check for like AI generated responses.
Or student to student, like if it's the same submission as another student?
Yeah, same thing there. Like, so it looks for any similarities between submissions. That's something that like I know how to implement that, and
Yeah.
it's just something that will go into it's the step after the core grading.
Got it. It's just funny because
Yeah.
that's what, like, my group we talked about most. We were just like, this doesn't seem like real students.
Yeah.
So it's something
Yeah,
we pinpointed right off from the very beginning that it all is too similar. They either have the solution key. This doesn't see how students solve this real time. So yeah, we got distracted because we thought they were real like submissions.
Oh, well, thank you. That's no, they were not real. One element I put in here to kind of not bypass, but alleviate those concerns. I added in the advanced analytics on the dashboard, there's a statistical measurement, but it's called the grading reliability, and it speaks to that. It doesn't do what we just described, but it looks at the totality of the submissions, and it says, okay, these are unique enough, and this is how much you should this is how much confidence you should put stock into the reports that I just generated. So it is just a statistical chi-squared test, but that's what that is. So that's what it is for now. Later, it'll be an actual AI checker or copy. It's going to check for that at some point, hopefully in the fall. Yes. Jake, yes, sir.
Hi, I did jump ahead a little bit when we were in breakout rooms, and I wanted to just use ScoreWise while I was there. And I
Yeah.
had it go over Sophia Gonzalez's and another student, so I think it was Priya. And Sophia didn't have the free body diagram, and it made no comment on that. It didn't put it in like the room for growth. And on another student, it did comment on it, and there was like no difference in the overall grade. So I'm a bit curious as to why you think that would happen.
Yeah, I think I know why it happened. So the diagram checker, like it's the handwritten reader is really good at that. Is really good at checking for diagrams. The default one is not. So like if it were to be passed to the handwritten software, it would definitely pick up on it. I have no doubt it would pick up on that. The problem is that was the only handwritten thing in their entire submission. So like 95% of their submission was text-based. And so it doesn't even pass the first test that the AI kind of goes through, because it checks to see like, okay, is this text-based or is this handwritten? or is it mostly text-based? If it's something like less than 70% text-based, it will call the handwritten stuff to read it. This just didn't pass that test. So it didn't register. Now, why it registered it for, you said it did register it for Priya?
Yeah, for Priya, it did comment on the lack of a diagram.
So I'd be curious. I'm wondering if it did that because in Sophia's, it's like they described it. They described the diagram, which is good enough usually for the default one. And I wonder if Priya just didn't, or didn't describe it well enough, or missed something.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's the case because it did say like you had a great analysis on like the forces on it. So I'm assuming that is why it happened.
Yeah. Yeah, good question. Yeah, I'll, as much as I really love score-wise, AI is AI. The state of AI is just what it is. You know it when a student submits something that's AI generated, especially when there are diagrams involved. It can't do it. It's really good at it's really poor at generating any of those free body diagrams or just pictures in general. Can't do it. Not yet, anyway. But I think it's a large language model that just evolves with time. So I think it's going to get better, frankly. And I think someone spoke to this earlier. Like you're going to have to, like, on us, like our duty is now to kind of come up with questions that are difficult for the AI to copy and simulate, which I think just makes the questions more interesting, more open-ended. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, thank you. And thank you all. I appreciate your time and all the questions and all the interest. I will stop sharing for now, but I did want to encourage, I want to respect your time, so I'll kind of do my closing now, but I did want to give you an opportunity to test it out yourself with confidence. Anything you submit is going to be trashed. If you want to test it on your own students, your own submission, and see if and I would love to hear either way, whether it worked well or it didn't work well at all. And you said, if you come back to me and say, hey, like this student is this was an A submission and the grader gave them a C, or vice versa. These are things I want to know about. It's usually good, especially if you supply that solution set and custom rubric. It should be in line with what you think. But all the same, I'm happy to offer that to you to play with for basically the rest of the day. And if you have any questions or concerns, I'd love to hear those too.
Great. Thank you, Jeremy. I'm going to stop the recording.
Yeah, can I ask a quick question? One of the things I was asking in my group was when we use AI, we train it. So when we input the key, I know Jeremy said it doesn't store anything at the end. Does it? I was wondering if you give a similar assignment next time, because it had this one, does it, if students wanted to use AI to get their answers, does AI now give it to them because it had the key before?
Well, certainly, I mean, if they have the key. So what happens for the most part, like currently, is that students who want to cheat, who just want the AI to use ChatGPT to do their assignments for them, if the questions are tailored such that you can, it's something that AI can easily generate, then there's not going to be much of an issue like that. It'll generate something that's probably pretty accurate if the questions are like this. They're quite basic. If you give it something more complex, like I have an example where one problem I give is ultimately an Lagrangian point problem, where it's just a dying star that just expands, and it expands beyond a certain point, and so the companion star feeds off of it. And this is a very like unique and complex problem that AI on its own will mess up. If you ask it for diagrams, AI is not going to generate that. So my questions, I tend to use the same questions that I've been using, but I'll break them down into sections like, hey, draw the free body diagram for this. What's this specific component? What's how'd you calculate this? That stuff like that, where AI is falling behind a bit. It can't do the image generation stuff very well, and that's kind of how I've bypassed them just simply copying pasting the assignment into ChatGPT and then just submitting whatever the output is. But there is no AI detection in ScoreWise yet, but it's coming.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And when ScoreWise generates the reports for students, does it tell the students that is there anything there that says that it was AI generated?
Yeah, so I mean the report says ScoreWise AI, like the format of the
Yeah.
report has that banner on it. But I mean, if you don't have to. I mean, you can edit it if you like. You can edit that stuff out. But yeah, I had no problem sharing that and just being upfront with my students. Like because I wanted to test it. I made this code and it's like, I'm gonna grade some of your stuff with it and give you the reports. Tell me what you think of those reports. And all of my students, like all of them, not one, not only didn't complain, they preferred that. They preferred that report that they were getting, even if it did say AI at the top.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Jeremy. I'm going to stop the
Yeah.
recording now.